109th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, October 8th, 2019, where I am your host, Noah Freeman. On the docket for tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Hoosier Hysteria, since that was the most recent thing that happened in both the football and basketball programs. Then, since we will do a Rutgers preview at the very end of the podcast, but just breaking news, it's not going to be a very long preview. So, to kill some of the time elsewhere, we are reevaluating Indiana football's schedule this year, because a lot of the teams, our thoughts and comments that we had 2 months ago and 3 months ago over the summer when we were predicting the season and talking about it, things have drastically changed. So we're going to kind of talk about the rest of Indiana football schedule and what to expect within the next month, because this next month is really going to be a huge month for Indiana football. So let's get right into it. Here with me tonight, we've got Matt, as usual, but Nithin has to study. So we've got, you heard him here last week, a great contributor for a lot of football stuff and just Indiana contributor, in general, especially if you listen to those Hoosier Sound Offs recently. It's been a lot of Andrew Rude. How are you doing on this fine evening on Tuesday?
Noah, Matt, I'm doing great. Coming off a good bye week, so football got some rest, so I got some rest too. So ready to go for the new week.
Yep, except football was on a bye week, but basketball was just starting, basically. So, Matt, how are you doing after a week of not podcasting?
It's been relaxing. It's been nice. Got to sit back, chill back. Hoosier Hysteria was fun to watch on Saturday. Not having to worry about IU football. Being IU football on Saturday was nice too, and just being able to be a neutral and watch some really good games. That was a lot of fun. That Florida-Auburn game was a lot of fun to watch from a Gators fan's perspective. So, good weekend.
Yeah, and then a great slate of football games on Sunday that just makes the entire NFL season that much crazier.
Right, those Baltimore Ravens. Noah, how about them?
all I can say is that now we are one of two teams that are legitimately playing our third string quarterback.
Yes,
and starting our third string quarterback, and using a guy that didn't make the cut about a month and a half ago, basically, that was not going to make the team, and
he looked decent.
He did look decent, which man, they just can't catch a break with that. But we'll move into some basketball talk with Hoosier Hysteria. Andrew, did you get to watch the live sort of broadcast on BTN this past weekend?
No, actually, I was there in attendance.
Nice, even better,
even better.
So we can get some perspective from that. First, the BTN Plus experience. Matt, was it just me, or was the audio and visual not lined up?
No, it was terrible. I turned off the audio at a certain point because it was annoying me. It was
terrible broadcast from BTN, not the student announcers.
No, student announcers were great.
Yep. It was the broadcasting itself was awful, and it was not a great experience, but it was an experience nonetheless. But let's get some overall thoughts. And of course, we're not going to dive too much into a glorified practice per se, but and we're not going to take too much away, good or bad. But Andrew, being there over just the experience in general, how was the atmosphere? Have you been to Hoosier Hysterias before?
Yeah, I went. My first one was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I went the year before Romeo came.
Gotcha. Okay. So how was the experience, your second one, and how was the atmosphere since you were in attendance?
Atmosphere overall, it was kind of down more than I thought it was going to be. Stands were decently packed. Atmosphere-wise, they were loud, as always. Hoosier fans are. Even for the women's got a lot of standing ovations at this Hoosier Hysteria with their team coming in. So there's going to be some great things going on in the women's program. Try to get people out there to go and see that. Big things going on for that program. For the men's side, it's Hoosier Hysteria every year. They're going to be loud no matter what. Calvert Cheney came out, so that was huge. Supporting Archie 100% of the way, what he's doing with the program. So that got even more uproar from the crowd. Other than that, the contests were all right. Al Durham won the three-point contest with a Jalen Penn. It was kind of a men's-women's duo. And then Trace Jackson won the dunk contest. And then the homage to Calvert Cheney with the jersey was really special. Good to see that.
Yeah.
But then came the glorified practice scrimmage, and a lot of guys sat out of it. So that didn't really show much. Good to see Jerome Hunter back out on the floor. Had some good things going. Hit a post fader, contested off the backboard. Good to see him getting back into game shape, seeing what he can do. Excited for what he can do this season. Other than the fire alarm, really, nothing really big happened. It was funny. Rob Finney went out on stage, and then the alarm went off, and we were all thinking, I was talking to some of the guys, we were all thinking it's like the purge alarm, and it was the next person that was up was going to be kind of like that. But then the fire alarms went off. People started leaving. People were actually walking out out of the exits, but then everybody brought it back in. So we got the show going. Other than that, that was a big thing that really happened. Jerome Hunter's back. Hopefully he can add some more going into the season. And then the addition of Joey Brunk brought a lot of energy from the crowd.
So it seems like, did people actually think that the fire alarm originally at first glance or first listen was almost like part of the show itself in the next introduction?
Yeah, I thought it was too. I thought it was like the purge. It sounded like the voice and everything for that announcement. So I thought it was going to be like that. But then it was just the built up of pyrotechnics and all the smoke from the women's announcements. So it was crazy.
It's very interesting.
I've never been inside the hole when there's a fire drill. I have been inside when there was a tornado drill.
Yes, same.
Or tornado warning, not a drill.
That wasn't. I was in one of those too.
That was not fun. No.
As everyone's just crammed underneath, just waiting for everything to clear and stuff. But Matt, what were your overall thoughts just of the entire event itself, I guess?
I think it was great. Nobody got injured. Trey Jackson Davis endeared himself to the Hoosier faithful. I think that's always great from 5-star recruit coming in. Can't hurt to have more fans. Jerome Hunter's back. He looked pretty good in a glorified practice. They're out there messing around, playing around, but it's good to see him actually moving on the court in a uniform. It was a year ago this time where I was like, wow, he looked really good playing defense on Rome.
Yeah.
So
same thing. Yep.
I don't want to jinx by saying anything, but it's nice to see him out on the court playing. Joey Brunk looks interesting. He made a couple of really nice basketball plays in the scrimmage itself. I think when he poked the ball away from Trace, a really nice sly veteran
Trace
defensive
took it back
play.
to him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I think they're going to be two great additions to the squad. So it's just nice to see everybody play. Of course, I would have loved to see the three guys that sat out play. That's Duran, Devontae, and Rob. That would have been nice to see them all play, but soreness. You got to account for soreness in these things, which is a glorified way of saying we don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah.
So look, I'm excited for the season to start. We're a month away from the first game, or 3 weeks away from less than a month away from the first preseason game. So it's coming around the corner quick.
Yeah, it is. And it was the very end of the first week of practice. So I mean, it was some soreness, but definitely glad to at least sit him out if that was the precaution, just in case. And who would have thought going into it, at least, that if you would have said 3 people were going to sit out from the scrimmage, and one of them definitely would have been everyone. If they predicted one of 3 people would have definitely been Jerome Hunter.
Hunter, yeah.
All right, so let's get into a little bit of the event itself. You of course got the presentations and the announcing of everyone coming out. Basically, personally, I think sometimes it takes a little long. I understand trying to give everyone their small little moment, but just having to announce all of the women's team, including the staff and the coaches, and all of the men's team, every single player and the staff and the coaches, I just feel like it takes a little long. I don't know how to cut that down per se, because that's something that everyone looks forward to, especially when you're a recruit sitting in the stands. It's like, I want to be that person right there getting called out with pyrotechnics and all that kind of stuff.
I want to be that person too.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know how to cut that down, but after you get through it, it's nice to see some stuff, and it's nice to just have basketball start. I feel like that's my overall takeaway from it. I know there's nothing to really actually dive deep into in terms of like play on the court or anything, but it's nice just that basketball's kicked off, and it was a lot earlier this year, but it was a good moment that it was just the end of the first week of practice. It's kind of just a final accumulation of that end of first week of practice, and then like Matt and Andrew was alluding to, the season will start soon with preseason games, and then we start to get some real action, which I will preface this entire exercise by we are not going to go into at all lineup projections. We've had a lot of talk in the back channels about lineup projections I've seen on Twitter and Facebook and forums and everything of who we think's going to be projected to start and sit and all of this kind of stuff. There's a very big discussion coming from that we'll do later. We'll do later when we are trying to predict who might start on the team. So, contest. Did you guys like or dislike any of the contests? Did you find that skills contest to be interesting, Andrew?
Yeah, it was very interesting seeing Joey Brunk going up down the floor as a center. I thought that was really cool to see. But he did a good job. Honestly, he did. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he won that with Ali Patberg in the final round. So that was really good to see, showing off his capability shooting and dribbling and whatnot. Other skills competition, I alluded to that. The 3-point competition. No, I don't know if you're planning on getting to that, but the 3-point competition was a little underwhelming, I would say. Al Durham showed what he was capable of, and so did Jalen Penn. Jalen Penn was knocking him in, kind of carrying Al Durham before Al got going. But good job by her. Demezy Anderson, I don't know what's up with his shot. I don't see a lot of jump in when he jumped from his base when he's in a jump shot. There's some rotation on the ball, but he was just hit or miss. It was just I couldn't watch it really.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, Demezy's shot is not what you would call atypical. It's interesting to say the least. He gets a lot of rotation on his shot, but like a lot of rotation on his shot. But he doesn't jump at all. It takes a while to get off. But if it goes in, it goes in. And he did it in high school, so I assume he can get it going in college. I thought he looked really streaky in the shooting contest. But
yeah,
he was our streaky shooter known coming in.
The one takeaway that I kind of gleaned from some of the 3-point shooting contest and then into the scrimmage itself, and again, it's not a game scenario going game pace with shooting a 3, but the scrimmage, at least he did this once with, I think Al Durham's going to be a key contributor in terms of shooting the 3 this year. He's going to have to step up a little more. I think we all think that Devontae might be that first and foremost guy that's going to try and shoot a 3, especially since he likes to shoot a long 3 now that the line has been moved back a little bit. But I think Al's going to be a guy that you can see potentially consistently shooting some, and if depending how, because I think that this Archie team's going to be really different, like we've heard rumors about with how the offense is going to flow, how he might want to do more motion stuff and a lot of big guys, but depending on how the offense might change, if Al doesn't have to work the ball a lot, and he might be able to give that to Rob or Devontae, if he just kind of finds a corner and then takes a shot, or the ball gets down to Duran, he kicks it back out to Al. I think Al can be a guy that might consistently be able to shoot some 3s. He might be able to get still 40% on the year, but maybe not a whole ton of shots, like maybe a 3, like 1-3 every game or so, but he's a guy that Indiana's going to have to look for to be able to shoot the ball.
Absolutely. He's going to be a big part of the offense, spacing the floor, because, we're going to be playing 2 big men, which means we need to have at least 3 shooters on the floor along with them in order to spread the ball around. I expect the team to shoot a lot more 2s than 3s this year. I think we're going to be living at the free throw line, and that scares me after last year. But our terrible free throw shooters are gone, and the people that will be taking free throws will be better free throw shooters, hopefully, this year. So that's fine. I expect a lot more 2s and 3s, but the people that will be shooting 3s, I think, will be hitting them at a higher rate than the people that were hitting them last year. Like Romeo and Joanne, I think I saw a statistic, they shot like 50-something% of our 3s or 60% of our 3s last year, and they both shot under 30% themselves, or just around 30% themselves. Like, that is not good at all. And you look at people like Devontae, who's a 36% shooter, and you look at Al Durham, who's about a 37 or 38% 3-point shooter, and you go, these guys shooting more shots, getting more shots up will equal more baskets. If the numbers work out themselves and giving them a year to develop, and Devontae getting a little bit more confidence in himself, I assume we're going to be hitting at a higher percentage than we were last year. So.
Yeah. I've for the next part, the skills contest, I've gotten a lot of mixed reviews from what I've heard. I feel like just a lot of Hoosier hysteria. It's a lot of opinion. I hear someone really really likes this, or I hear someone really really dislike this. I heard a lot of love the skills contest. I love it. Oh, that was really boring. So Andrew, what do you think of the skills contest? Was that something that you enjoyed watching? Is it something that might be uh, able to keep, I guess, next year and going forward, but maybe tweak or add a few things?
The skills competition, I don't really see the use behind it. Another competition for the players to get involved with the men's and the women's teams. But I felt like the crowd, once you got through the 3-point contest and into the skills competition, the crowd kind of died down a bit. So maybe getting that out next year, getting rid of that, and adding something else. I was listening to some call the other day, and they had some good stuff about making it a practice, like having having a practice, doing all that, showing what Archie, how he runs a practice, doing all that, and then just finding different ways to get more fan involvement. Because I feel like once you do all the contests, it kind of draws them out, especially once you get to the scrimmage.
Yeah, I had the same thought when you were talking about a practice, because all of us are very basketball, like we all love and want to get into the nitty gritty things with basketball, but I feel like the average fan might not like a practice. That was the one thing that I thought of, because it's every year most of a large majority of the fans in the audience leave for the scrimmage, and I feel like that's the thing I look forward to every year, even if it's just a pickup game for 8 minutes. And so I feel like a practice would be even more boring for the people that are in attendance. So I honestly don't know what the solution is. I really like what they were talking about. I'd love to see some 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, or something like that. Get a little competition going. This is a assembly call talking what their thoughts were. Maybe have 3-on-3 competition on both ends of the court so you could watch both sides, and maybe have a championship game or something like that, meeting in the middle or whatnot. But Matt, did you want to jump in here real quick before we go on to the scrimmage?
I mean, yeah, I have a couple thoughts about this. I could do a whole podcast episode by myself talking about ideas for Hoosier Hysteria. But my favorite one, honestly, is you just talked about fan involvement. I think taking fans out of the seats and bringing them on the courts with the players would be a great idea. Doing a little bit of a contest between you match up a player with the women's team and the men's team with two other fans, like another men's and a women fan. And you match them up on the court and you have them do like a free throw contest, and you have them like sit there and work with them and kind of like have them teach them how, like proper form or something like that, and like have them like 5 minutes to work with them in like the back, and then have them come in and do it on the court and see what it's like to be on the court, like with the players, with people looking at you. I think that would be really cool and a fun experience, and get the crowd worked up. And maybe this person's playing for this section and they win free tickets, or something like that. Something to get the fans involved and kind of reward them for coming out and supporting the program would be a lot of fun. I get the practice idea. I really do, of course, but I feel like it's just kind of boring and old school, and not something that a lot of the people who are going to come out for Hoosier Hysteria really want to see. I think people who come out to Hoosier Hysteria are coming out because it's free, and they may not be able to make it to some of the paid games, but at least they come and see the basketball team and then go watch them on TV every week. So I'm going to be a lot more of the casual people who are going to come out to Hoosier Hysteria than to a game. So they're not going to want to sit through and watch them run cone drills. So, yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we could talk a bunch about ideas and stuff with this, and at least I'm glad that they're trying new things. They tried the stage idea which I think everyone loved. I would have loved it even more if they used both the screen projections on the court and the stage. No reason you couldn't use both, I feel like, because everyone loved that last year.
That's what Michigan State does.
Yeah. I even heard Hoosier Heartland with Ben Malcolms, and he was like, I purposely went up high because I thought I'd be seeing some of those projections. I wanted to see it up high. So, Andrew, what were you going to say before we moved to scrimmage?
Another interesting idea, and I've heard this going around the rumor, bring the women's team on and do like a half scrimmage with them, half scrimmage with the men's, kind of get more women's involvement, because there's a lot of excitement going in that women's program, and they don't get enough of the fans that the men's team do. So I think bringing some more uprising from them would be really good for the entire Indiana basketball program as a whole.
Or a 2v2 tournament with one guy and one girl, and have them match up and have them like kind of pick teams. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'd really want to see 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, that kind of stuff, just smaller game things, because it's a little more interesting. And yeah, I totally agree. I forgot about adding the women's team. Like Assembly Call again said, just 8 minute scrimmage men's, 8 minute scrimmage women's, because it's really good to see. Because honestly, they're probably going to do better in the long term this year than the men's team will. They've got a lot of really high aspirations. Remember, they made it to the NCAA tournament this year. They won their first game, and it's really hard to win at the top of the women's game, the women's basketball in college. I can't talk tonight. It's really hard to win in the NCAA tournament because the top teams are way better than even like 30 through 40 basically in the women's, and they're going to compete this year, which is going to be really incredible, and we will follow them this year. So you can check our website and our podcast for a lot of that content, and go to a game. Just like Terry Moran said.
Fun.
Yep, they're fun. You'll see the band there too, part of a band. And just like Terry Moran said, both for men's and basketball, just be with both teams basically as the season has both of their ups and downs. But let's cover a minute about the scrimmage, because that was the only even slightly more meaningful basketball that we saw compared to 3-point contests and dunk contests and skills competitions. But was there anything slightly, sort of, even a little tiny bit meaningful, Matt, that you could take away from the scrimmage, or was it just nice to see everyone out on the court at once?
I'm sorry, I lost you there. You lagged out for me.
Is there anything meaningful you could take away from the scrimmage, or was there just little tiny, like any little tiny, teeny tiny bit thing, or was it just nice to see everyone out on the court at the same time?
I think it was nice to see everybody out on the court at the same time. If I had to take anything out of the scrimmage, Trace Jackson Davis looked really nice in the scrimmage. I think the way they're going to use him this year is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I agree.
A lot of high posts, waiting on the block for some lob stuff. You're going to love to see him play. He's super athletic. I mean, you saw that from the dunk contest. But,
and he's not going to have to get put in a role that he has to do too much with. He's going to be able to do his stuff without having to overproduce.
Right, exactly. And I can't wait to see him on the fast break, too, because he looks like somebody can get up and down the court real well. And with the guards that we have, they're going to be loving him. They're going to be like, that's like 1 or 2 assists a night. Like, thanks, Trace. So I'm really excited. I think the new additions look great. Of course, Jerome Hunter being back in court looked nice too. Nothing other than that I can really take out of the scrimmage. I guess the whatever they're going to run on offense, it was looking great during the scrimmage. I thought the movement of the ball looked nice at times, and there was other times where you could tell that they were still learning kind of like the new way to play the offense. The ball would kind of stop, and everybody kind of look around and go, "Okay, what was the play? What are we running?" Like I forget what we're running. For a glorified scrimmage, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of stuff you said, especially with Trace. I love kind of the stuff he saw, especially when he had to go up against Joey. Joey was picking on him because he's going to, like, your bigger junior type of guy going up against the freshman. And like everyone heard, Joey hasn't lost a one-on-one competition, but I think Trace won that scrimmage against him, even though the matchup was Trace and Joey. Trace took it at him, and he was able to score too, and he defended Joey pretty well. But as you can see, if you're on YouTube, I showed Nithan's comment that he put down, which, Nithan, by the way, you're supposed to be studying instead of listening to our podcast right now. So Nithan said, and I heard this. I heard this also, like, before the tournament. First, Andrew, did they do the 3-on-3 normal tournament thingy before the game?
Yeah, they did the Candy Strike Classic. Yours truly was out there officiating it.
Nice.
It was good.
Yeah,
Good to get that exposure out on the court. But actually, that was really fun to ref, be a part of. I see those that team, the 3v3 team win. It was good kind of intro into Hoosier Hysteria. I thought it kind of got the crowd kind of hyped up, especially when apparently some people didn't like my calls, but every ref gets that life, so it's okay.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know you ref that. That's awesome. But Nathan said you could always do a Super Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart tournament on the scoreboard, which would be amazing, especially on weekends like this where there's no football game, where there's a football game projected on the scoreboard before the game. Yeah, that'd be fun. Just do that kind of stuff. Andrew, anything even slightly kind of tiny bit meaningful that you could take away from the scrimmage, or just a little bit nice to see everyone together at the same time?
No, I think Matt kind of made a good picture with it about the overall scrimmage. Some things I didn't like was there was a couple times on rebounds they just jacked up a quick three, and I didn't really like that. I like to set the offense back up. I know it's kind of a scrimmage and a practice, but you still want to see the team kind of get it out of there and reset the offense. I think that's something that probably just because it's a bunch of lineups that you're probably not going to have in a game. So they were just kind of getting their moment in front of a crowd.
Yeah. Let's hope that doesn't carry over. But I think the one thing that potentially we could see, because of course everyone's talking about the limited guard depth, is that especially even if there's like one injury, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Cooper Bybee on the court even for like a minute or two at times, because I could tell even at game pace he could potentially shoot the ball, and even if he gets one bucket, that's all that matters. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the court even a little bit outside of our November games.
I'm expecting him to see him in November a lot.
Oh, of course, yes, for like the majority of the game.
Come December, January, February, I hope to not see him a whole bunch. No offense, Cooper. Maybe in 2 years I'll be excited to see you in the court, but for this year, not so much.
That was a possible potential nice surprise with hopefully if he can keep shooting the ball kind of like that.
Yeah. Please become our Ryan Klein. Thank you very much. That's it.
Yeah. And just to kind of wrap up Hoosier Hysteria, I know there's mixed feelings on like if people even like it and if we should even really have Hoosier Hysteria. It's something that we should have. It's where it's a chance for all the recruits to come, and it's a huge recruiting tool. And like a lot of people have already said before, it's a chance for all those families that can come to a free event at Assembly Hall and really listen to Ben Malcolmson's podcast, Hoosier Heartland. He really talked about just he went there with a friend this year, basically, and I think his friend was there for the first time, and he just saw the awe that his friend had just coming into the hall for the very first time. And it's like people get those moments during Hoosier Hysteria at a free event in the afternoon. So it's a really cool thing to do, even if it's just a glorified practice like Coach Tonsoni might not like the pop the collar aspect of all of it, but which he's not here in our comments today. But let's move on to, since Nathan usually talks about who won the week, I'll take that over for today. But I'm going to go over to men's soccer because there wasn't anything humongous. There were a lot of nice wins over the weekend, as you can listen to with Andrew's Hoosier Sound Off Monday mornings. But I'm going to go to soccer because Aiden Morris was named Big Ten Soccer's Offensive Player of the Week. He got 4 points against Northwestern and Penn State. He earned his first Offensive Player of the Week award, and he's also the last player to earn this award since Andrew Gutman did almost a year ago in 2018. So if you're even being talked about in the same conversation as Andrew Gutman, then that's a good thing. So he had a good weekend. The men's soccer team is continuing to try and dominate or get through the Big Ten because they don't have as stacked of a team this year, but they're still trying to get, of course, their goal always is to win the entire Big Ten each year. So they had a good weekend, bouncing back after losing to a team like Butler a couple weeks ago. All right, let's move on to Indiana football. Like I talked about a minute at the beginning of the podcast, these teams have changed, basically. We thought this was going to be a humongous gauntlet of an entire season, just where there's maybe sort of kind of possibly 6 wins that this football team could get, and it has quickly turned to a game where I'm trying to do 3 things at once right now. I'm trying to find the poll I put out. There could be a lot of wins that this team gets.
Yes.
What I was alluding to, I put out a poll asking our fans, how many games do you think this football team could now win this season? Now that we're sort of kind of a third of the way almost sort of kind of half the way through the season. How many games do you think they could win? I had like 3 to 5, 6, 7, or 8 plus. Only 12% thought that Indiana was not going to get their 6 wins to go bowling this year. Only 12% out of about 300 people that voted. That's just over 30 people that did not think that they're going bowling. 37% thought we'd get just at 6 wins, which is, I think, we're going to talk about in a second. I think that's a very realistic outcome that this football team could get, but 40% thought 7, and this is before the extra bowl game. So it's not like they get 6 wins and then potentially a bowl win, since technically that bowl game counts on their record. And then even 11%, just about 30 people, thought 8 plus wins, which is something interesting that we can talk about. We, of course, went over the podcast in about July. Matt, Nathan, and who else was there? It was another. I think it was Blake or someone. Was it Blake then?
It was Blake.
Yeah. That went into in depth with each game, but every team has changed right now. I think my statement on Maryland, I felt about the same way on Maryland the whole time, but I think the national perception of Maryland has gone down a little bit, and I'm going after our Rutgers game, of course. So you've got Rutgers this weekend, then you've got at Maryland, which again, I think the national perception of Maryland has gone down. They're a hard team to figure out. Then Indiana travels to Nebraska, which is another team that was ranked in the top 25 at the beginning of the season. All of us thought they were overranked. Most people thought they were overranked. But nonetheless, even a team fringing on the top 25 is a team that usually beats Indiana. But Northwestern, that's next. Nebraska, I told you I can't talk tonight. Nebraska has had a lot of close games. They've lost some games that they probably shouldn't have. They playing a team like South Alabama and only winning by 2 touchdowns, that's not very great. They lost to Colorado. They destroyed Northern Illinois, yeah, but whatever. They barely beat Illinois, and Illinois is a team that is right next to Rutgers this year.
Terrible.
They're worse than normal this year.
Oh.
So before Matt gets to go on a rant,
They got so bad.
They got thumped by Ohio State, but I mean, look at us too. Everyone's getting thumped by Ohio State. Then barely beat Northwestern, and Northwestern as our next team. Indiana plays next at home, by the way, has also looked awful. We thought Northwestern would be a decent team this year, and they're 1-4 right now. They have only beaten UNLV. They lost to Stanford. Okay, not a bad loss. Lost to Michigan State. Okay, lost to Wisconsin. Okay, no, they lost to they're 1-4. Why did it say 1-4? They beat. Oh no, they lost to Nebraska. That's right. I can't talk tonight. I told you. Northwestern has looked awful, and it's not just that they've played a bunch of high teams, because you saw Michigan State, Stanford, Wisconsin, a bunch of teams that they've played, but Nebraska has not looked very good. So there's another game that potentially went from, it's at Nebraska. Indiana doesn't usually play at Nebraska. Probably a loss. I think all of us actually said a loss against Nebraska. Then you go to Northwestern, which is now a much, much more reasonable win, and I think now it's almost expected that Indiana would beat Northwestern. You got Penn State that looks the complete opposite. We all thought Penn State would look good, but they look really good. Yeah. Michigan, it's a game Indiana could possibly win. It's closer than what we thought 2 months ago, but it's still Michigan. We'll talk about it in a second. Then Purdue, 1-4 at Purdue, which is music to all Hoosier fans' ears, but still, it matters. Purdue is doing pretty poorly right now. The only team that they've beaten is Vanderbilt. They beat Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's not very good at football, by the way. Lost to Nevada, who got destroyed by Hawaii, by the way. Hawaii lost to TCU, lost to Minnesota, lost to Penn State. So there's reevaluating our schedule as we talk about more potential games that Indiana could win, which 3 more wins that Indiana needs to get to go bowling. After my long monologue of Indiana's opponents: Rutgers, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, Michigan, Purdue. Midway-ish season reevaluation, Andrew. What are your thoughts on the amount of games Indiana could potentially win from here on out?
Well, going into the season, up to right now, I think they're kind of where I expected. I expected them to lose to Ohio State and Michigan State. They played really well against Michigan State.
Sure.
So sitting at 3-2, entering the bye weeks, what I kind of expected. Shaping up the rest of the season, this season could go very high really quickly for the Hoosiers. Rutgers coming up, very struggling program. A bunch of people are thinking transferring. The brand new system going in with the new head coach and new offensive coordinator. And then you have at Maryland and at Nebraska. Those 2 games are swing games. I think if you want to go bowling, these are the 2 games. At least one of them you have to get. Mm-hmm. At Nebraska, playing that crowd, it's going to be very difficult. But Michael Penix handled himself at Michigan State in front of 70,000 people. So if the offense is going and the defense can get enough stops, I think both those games are winnable games for sure. Northwestern could be a potential trap game. You don't really know. It could be the luck of the Hoosiers in the past. You could go into a game against a lower opponent and not show up. Never know what's going to happen in that game. At Penn State, I'm still going to have to go with a loss on that. Penn State's looking too good right now. Yeah. They just put a whooping on Purdue last weekend. that defense was incredible, and so was that offense, which Purdue is struggling. They have many injuries. Two of their best players are out, Rondale Moore and Elijah Sindelar. So that's a big takeaway there. And then Michigan's another one that if you want to go bowling, this could be a swing game as well. They've always played Michigan very tough. Even when it's been on the road, it's at IU for senior night. So that can be a big game there. And then Purdue, I can see that as a win as well. So basically Nebraska, I can see as a loss, and Penn State and Michigan. So I'm going to go with 3 more losses on the season. So that would be, do some quick math.
7-5.
7-5, yep. Which I think that's where I predicted at the start of the year. It was 7-5 regular season, or it was 7-6 with the bowl game. But I did predict 7 wins on the year.
Matt, I'll give it over to you.
I mean, I could very much see this team with 8 wins. Easy. I can see us winning our next 4 easy. And then I can also see us winning 2 of our next 4 and then finishing the season 5-7. So, things are very much up in the air, and the team is going to have to make plays down the stretch, and people are going to have to stay healthy. I'm looking at you, Michael Penix, because we all know this team is completely different with Penix on the field. And you take that performance from the Ohio State game, we're all like, oh my God, like, are we going to win another 3 games? And now after the Michigan State performance, it's all like, we could win 8, we could win 9 games, right? Like, Michigan's very much a winnable game now. Nebraska and Maryland, even though they're away, still very much winnable games. I mean, coming into the season, like Noah said, we all thought Nebraska was going to be a loss. Now, having watched them the first 4 or 5 weeks ago, oh, they're kind of garbage. They're not good. Outside of Martinez, their quarterback, like, they don't have much going for them. So, that's very much a winnable game. I'm still higher on Maryland than Noah is. I think they have games in which they explode, and then games in which they lay duds. And we've seen that happen with them this year. But I still think they're a little bit too dangerous. They're kind of like a cornered dog. Like, you don't want to poke it too much. Northwestern doesn't look very good at all. Penn State looks like world beaters. So it's gonna be fun to watch them play Ohio State, because I think they're the one team that's going to give Ohio State fits in the Big Ten. Michigan's not going to do very well this year, I don't think. Their offense looks atrocious, and then Purdue's injured. So, looking at the schedule, this could very well end up being IU's first winning season in what seems like forever.
Do you mean winning season as in 6-6 or like 7-5?
No, I mean 7-5. I mean, I could easily see this team beating Rutgers, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, and being at 7 wins going into Penn State, Michigan, Purdue, and winning one of those games. We're 8-4, and looking at it like a very nice bowl game, an incredible bowl game for what the Hoosiers are usually accompanied to, which is not going to a bowl game, accustomed to. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, I think 8 wins is very possible with this team. 9 wins is even possible too if we beat Michigan. And we win the games that we're supposed to win. But I'm not too confident in that, because I haven't seen the coaching staff. I haven't seen the coaching staff hasn't given me enough confidence to be like, okay,
0% confidence in that happening. All right, Matt, first, before I dive into a couple things, at Penn State, you predicted in our predictions episode a win at Penn State. Would you like to retract that?
Yes, I would really like to retract that and move that to the Michigan game, please. And okay. I'll retract the Penn State one. I was very low on Penn State going into this year, and they have proven me very wrong.
All right. That's okay. I'm glad you're doing that. But this just kind of shows how crazy what we thought a couple months ago. First, at the very end of the season, both Matt and I predicted 6-6, which honestly, I by the end of it, we'll talk about our thoughts at the end. I could still see 6-6. That still means they go bowling though. But yeah. Nathan thought 5-7. Nathan thought the Hoosiers would be 5-1 coming into the Maryland game. He had beating Ohio State. I think he wants to retract that one as of now as well. But he had 5-1 and then losing out. And I don't know if there is something really wrong with this team if they lose Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, Michigan, Purdue, all of those 6 games in a row. So I'm pretty sure and really hope that Nithin's 5-7 projection record that everything is going to completely change. But first, let's talk about Rutgers. Rutgers, if they lose this weekend, everything we talk about on this entire podcast goes out the window. Panic ensues. So we're assuming that we get through this weekend, Rutgers, and it is the Indiana has a 4-2 record. 4-2 record. That's what we all thought about. But right now, for some reason, instead of 2 months ago, when a lot of people predicted a 4-2 record after the Rutgers game, but compared to 2 months ago, I feel like 4-2. That's like a lot closer to 6 wins than it felt like 2 months ago. Because just think about, even if I still think Indiana's going to be able to give Michigan again, but let's just think automatic loss, Michigan and Penn State. That's still, you've got at Maryland, at Nebraska, Northwestern, at Purdue. Yeah, 3 of those games are road games, but can you really tell me that 2 of those games Indiana probably might not be able to get? I really think Indiana has a good chance of getting at least at Maryland, at Nebraska, home against Northwestern, at Purdue, and that's just to get to 6 wins. And what Matt was alluding to a little bit was winning all of those 4 games. You win those 4 games, that's where you get 8 wins, and that's where Crimson Quarry's 9-win Indiana team, because you win the bowl game, actually comes into place. And we're making fun of it, but actually it's sort of kind of in play right now. The way they were making fun of it and making t-shirts and everything, and they knew it wasn't possible. It is much more possible than it used to be. But
I think I think the 2 things that contribute to this the most, and everybody's talking about it, is why we were talking about the 2 things we're talking about. 1, team performance on the field, what we've seen from the offense. We know the defense could be fixed and be better after the bye week, but the offense looked great with Penix and Kalen DeBoer running the offense. And the second thing is our opponents have looked awful and a lot worse than what we thought going into the season. So when we're talking about, we were talking about this, 6-6, 5-7 going to see, like, we're going to temper our expectations. Why our expectations are up so high now are those 2 reasons.
More games are basically winnable, because we thought Nebraska, all 3 of us predicted a loss at Nebraska. Northwestern, all 3 of us predicted a loss at home against Northwestern, which basically gave us at Maryland, at Purdue, that we had to get a win to be able to go bowling. Now those 4 games open up. So it really was 2 games to go bowling. You had to be perfect in those 2 games. Have opened up to 4 games. You need to win 2 of those 4 to go bowling, and all 4 of those games are very reasonably, you could win those games to go to 8 wins or 7 wins or 6 wins. So, Andrew, and I challenge all of you to Duncan, a fan. Matt lacks the faith that and shall be punished with the 9-win Indiana, but I challenge you to do this yourself. Think of, so you got at Maryland, at Nebraska, Northwestern, at Purdue. Rank those games in order from like best chance to win to least chance to win. Those are really hard, and I could rotate all of those games in and out. And wait, no, Maryland could be here. Wait, no, Purdue could be here. Andrew, I'm going to put you on the spot. What did I say? Most chance. What did I say? I can't even remember.
It was most likely to least likely. So best chance
most
to win.
Likely to win to least likely to win. Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue.
Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue. Okay. Most likely, I'm going to go with Northwestern. I just feel like there's not a lot going there with their program right now. But it's also a game that it could go either way. But I'm going to have to go with that one up top as the best chance to win. Looking next, it's going to have to be Maryland. Their program just up in the air right now. They're sometimes consistent. Then there's games where they're not really consistent at all. They don't have the offensive firepower like they did in the first 2 weeks of the season. Last week they put 48 points on Rutgers, but it's Rutgers, so just leaving that there.
That's one of their 3 wins. At Rutgers.
Next up is going to be the Purdue game. Especially if Sindelar and Moore cannot come back, that's just going to be devastating for them. When they played against Penn State, Plummer, their backup quarterback, was just getting trounced by the Penn State defensive front, and it was just nothing there for them. But that was on the road at Penn State, so you never know if they can get some chemistry going with their receivers. David Bell, hopefully there could be probably some chemistry there between him and Plummer. They could get better. You never know. Then next would be trying to think here. I'm going to go with the Nebraska game. Actually, scratch that. I'm going to go with Michigan. I think Michigan is a
What? That wasn't
chance.
even a whoa.
That wasn't even part of the thing. Hold up.
Wait, I'm confused. Okay, yeah.
Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue. Just those 4 games.
Okay.
Just assuming
He's
Penn State. Yeah.
Sorry, you had to say it, and I just okay. So the next one would be the Nebraska, least likely, just because it's on the road. Nebraska is a big time program. They have been for years. Even with the up and downs they had this year, I'm going to put Nebraska as the least likely to win.
Yeah. If I had to put a final answer down, most likely to least likely, I'd probably go with that, Andrew. I'd probably agree with Northwestern, then Maryland, then Purdue, then Nebraska. But again, those games at the very bottom are much more winnable now. Do you agree, or would you change a couple things, Matt?
I'm going to change a couple things. I go Northwestern 1, Purdue 2, Nebraska 3, Maryland 4. I think we had a better chance of beating Nebraska than we do have beating Maryland. I just think Maryland is a mismatch for our defense on offense because of their playmakers. Quick, fast guys that are going to get into space and create havoc compared to Nebraska, who wants to run you over. And we have a very decent running defense from what I've seen through the first couple weeks, aside from Ohio State, which has been running over everybody. I think what we did against Michigan State is going to help us a lot against Nebraska. So I think we have a better chance of beating Nebraska than we do have at beating Maryland.
Which you predicted a win against Maryland, by the way. So it looks like you're predicting all 4 of those games to be wins.
You know what? I'm optimistic now after that Michigan State game for now. And then next week I won't be optimistic. I go through phases. It's fine.
All right. Quick. What do you think now midway through the season? What do you think Indiana's record is going to be before a bowl game? I'm going to kick it off. I still think they go 6-6. I think they only get 2 out of those 4 games just because it's Indiana. Sometimes they find a way to do it, and Indiana football is a program where you got to see it before you believe it. So I still think 2 wins are very, very reasonable. And I think 6 wins should be the expectation at the very least. So I'm going to do 6-6. Andrew, kick it over to you.
I'm going to go 6-6 too. I'm going to have to agree with everything you said there, Noah. It's Indiana. You never know what's going to happen with them. People were talked to me earlier that we play all these non-conference teams that aren't very good, and they get the expectations up for the fans, and then you have a letdown near the end of the season. So that could go very well that way. So Matt, I think it's 6-6.
I'm going to say 7-5, and then we're going to get a win in the bowl game, and then we're going to be, in classic Indiana fashion, 1 win from our main goal, Duncan, and we're going to be slightly disappointed. So 7-5 with a bowl win means 8 wins, and so instead of 9 win Indiana, it's going to be 8 win Indiana. So
do you have IU winning 3 out of those 4 games we talked about, or you have 2 out of the 4 and then beating Michigan?
I have 2 out of the 4 and then beating Michigan.
Yeah, I think the difference overall from the point of this part of the podcast is just that even if it's 6-6, and I really think, and Duncan
8-4,
8-4, and I really think Indiana could and should get higher than 6-6. But I really think the point of this is I predicted 6-6. Matt predicted 6-6 2 months ago. It's a much more confident 6-6 than it was 2 months ago. I will be very disappointed that if it wasn't more than 6-6, because literally at the very end of the show, I had Indiana beating Purdue despite Matt and Nathan, and I'm like, just because I don't want them to beat us twice in a row, and that was literally my reasoning for why Indiana beats Purdue and goes bowling. But it is much more confidence this time. So before we make this episode incredibly long, let's go into a quick preview of Rutgers. And I think all of us feel a little bad for Rutgers this year, to be very honest. It's almost not even in a laughable way this year, just because.
If you can feel bad for another Big Ten team, this is Rutgers. Yes,
man. And they fired their coach a week ago, and if that wasn't bad enough, then the interim coach coming in is now sitting both their starting QB and running back to redshirt / them potentially transfer. They've had people like their captain, one of their offensive linemen, Zach Venetsky, got injured last game. He's one of the captains of the team, and they're literally not just they were a bad team beforehand, but they just keep. You lose your starting quarterback, you lose your starting running back, you lose a captain of the team, you have your coach fired, and it's just like, man, how many more punches can a team like this take? And it's Saturday the 12th, 12 o'clock p.m. on BTN. I'll just go into talking about the team team itself a little bit because I honestly feel bad a little bit for them. But they're 1-4 right now. The only team they've beat is UMass, and if we talked about, UMass is usually right at 130 out of 130 out of the teams in the FBS. They've lost to Iowa, Boston College, Michigan, and Maryland. In their defense, those are pretty good teams, except for sort of kind of Boston College. Depends on the year for them. But
Yeah.
on the good side for Indiana, Indiana is actually at 28th overall in the S&P Plus rankings. They're 27th in offense, which has really changed. It was in the 50s to 60s at the beginning of the year. 27th offense, 39th in defense, 21st in special teams. Compared to Rutgers is 98th overall. Their offense 106th, defense 70th, special teams 60th. So you can see what at least S&P Plus thinks their strengths are compared to their weaknesses. And I think this is probably updated after they benched a lot of their starters and lost them. All right, now for some of the almost cringy statistics. The Rutgers has not won a conference game since 2017. They are also on a 17-game losing streak to Power 5 opponents. All right, averages. So they are averaging 14.2 points per game, but if you take out the UMass game, which they scored, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was like 42 or 48 points against UMass. You take out that UMass game and they're averaging 5.75 points per game. 5.75 points per game. They're not even averaging 2 field goals per game if you take out that UMass game. Their most that they had was against Boston College at 16. They had 0 points against Iowa and Michigan, both they were shut out, and they only had a touchdown against Maryland, who,
That's
as
good,
we
right?
talked about, is streaky to say. Yeah, they are, and this is taking out the UMass game because they had over 550 yards, and it's UMass, but they are only averaging 243 yards per game total. 155 passing yards, 80-yard run, 88 yards on the ground. They have given up 8 interceptions total and 3 fumbles, so that's about 3 turnovers per game, both for interceptions and fumbles. All right, now to see a little bit of the offense itself, which you will probably see Saturday. First, do we know if, what's his name? I wrote it down. McLean Carter. Do we know if his concussion protocol is even close to being finished on Saturday, or is it, do you know, Andrew, or is he probably still out with his concussion?
I have no idea. Pulling up a recent article, it doesn't have any from like NewJersey.com, and there's nothing about his status yet.
Okay, I would assume
Not that I can
probably
see.
out then, but McLean Carter beat out Art Sitkowski for the starting job in training camp this year, and then he got a concussion. So Sitkowski, the heir apparent to the team this year, got to start again, but of course been benched to redshirt. So Johnny Langan came in this past game, and against Maryland, it was 13 for 25, 163 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also rushed 19 times. He had 19 rushing attempts for 59 yards and a touchdown. At that point, you're almost trying to rush the ball that many times. But you go into, again, a backup running back, Isaiah Pacheco, who has seen the field before. He's seen Indiana, but he's not Shane Blackshear. But you've got 19 attempts on 78 yards this past game for Isaiah. Wide receivers, oof. Like Andrew was talking about before the podcast, Blackshear was their best receiver as a running back, had the most attempts or receptions, at 29 receptions. He has 29 of the 85 receptions for Rutgers on this season. I'll say that again. Their running back that is now being sat has 29 of the 85 receptions on the season. So you go over to Bo Melton is now the next guy up, the number 1 receiver. He has 15 receptions on the entire season. Divide that by 4 games, you get the gist. Then the next lowest receiver has only 7 receptions. Their number 2 receiver has 7 receptions on the entire season.
That's good.
Out of 4 games, it's less than 2 receptions a game for their number 2 receiver. This is adding all of the running backs and tight ends and receivers. This is just whoever is catching the ball right now. Okay, now that I've been talking a lot about Rutgers, have I missed anything about the offense, Andrew?
No, I think you got it spot on, really. Great analysis by you. I love that. There's
All
this game should be one that Indiana should go in very confident, but also not take it for granted. You never know what could happen, even being the 26, 25-point favorite they are. This could be one that the defense finds its stride, gets going, not having to go against an Ohio State and Rutgers in 2 out of 3 weeks. So this could be one the D-line gets going and cleans up some issues that those in the secondary that they had against Michigan State.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the defensive side, just kidding, Matt.
I mean, this is a team that we should force turnovers against. I'm going to be very upset if we don't force turnovers against them. Anything more than 14 points given up to them, and I'm going to be crying alone and eating ice cream by myself on Saturday. So, yeah, that's about it.
I think more than double digits. I honestly think they should hold them to less than a touchdown, or if it's a touchdown, stop the. I really think Indiana needs to get 6 or less points.
But I'm counting garbage time points here. Okay, at this point,
That's true. Maybe Indiana puts out some garbage time, which we've seen them do to get some of the other QBs some reps. I could see that. Yeah. That's including garbage time. I can see that.
Noah update. I'm looking on this on sportsreference.com. McLean Carter is sidelined still and is expected to sit out the remainder of the season.
Wow. Holy cow.
So that's coming from them on their website.
We don't even need to get into it, but people talking about Race and Rob this past year with a concussion, about how they were just like, they need to put these kids in. This is an entire season for a concussion, by the way. All right, the Rutgers defense. Right now, I didn't do too much. Carter retired early tonight. Nathan says in the thing that Carter retired early tonight. We'll have to find those specifics or not.
Oh, wow.
We are not very prepared tonight. We're sorry. I came sort of prepared, just not with everything. But Rutgers defense, you've got Tyshawn Fogg is really their only guy that's doing a lot of stuff. He's got 46 tackles on the season, I think, so far. So he's the guy that's going to be clocking up a lot of the lane. They have allowed 36.2 points per game. They have also allowed basically 430 yards per game. 230 on the air, 200 in the rush, so about equal for pass and rushes. They've only taken away 3 interceptions this year, no fumbles, so they're averaging less than 1 takeaway per game, and they also have only gotten 6 sacks this entire year, so they're averaging 1.5 sacks every game. So they're not getting turnovers, they're not getting to the quarterback, they're giving up a lot of yards, and this is including the UMass game, by the way. And so I really think Nathan said he sent in a note out on Twitter. So there you go. McLean Carter is gone, and they are now going to go with Johnny Langan. But that's where the defense is at, and I think the expectation should be 40-plus for Indiana, less than 10 for Rutgers. Anything other than that will be given the circumstance, I think we might be just a tiny bit cause for concern, but I think that's the expectation. You agree, Andrew, or tweak anything?
Yeah, I think that's good. Looking at our predictions on our Rutgers preview, by the way, check that out, IndianaHQ.com. Nathan wrote that for this week. We all have our predictions at least in the mid-30s. Nathan has a 38 to 13 score. Rob, me, and Dakota or Cody, we all have 40s and 50s. So it should be not even close. But Tom Alston is availability on Monday. It doesn't really matter. They don't look at that. They're going to go out there. All they're looking forward to is playing Rutgers. So
they should.
That was the vibe I picked up on Monday for sure.
Which is good. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we should roll over this team. Rutgers is not good. I mean, Noah can go on and talk about statistics all day. I'm sure we could pull out stuff that just makes them look bad because that's what they are. They're not a good football team. And I feel really sorry for them. Look, they just lost a coach. Players are leaving them, retiring.
Talk about their circumstance.
Talk about it, yeah. And so, look, this game needs to be a win, and it needs to be a comfortable win because this team is almost as bad as Connecticut was. And we went out and took care of business against Connecticut. I expect us to come out and take care of Rutgers as well.
Yeah. And I think it also speaks volumes to where this team is at least even this season, let alone going forward to where we are expecting them to not only go out and win, but to win big, which is something that even last season we weren't necessarily expecting, even against a team like Rutgers or maybe those lower FBS/FCS opponents. So
we've finally taken the next step in program development. We've gone from
Tiny.
Tiny. Well, it's
Microscopic step.
One small step for
Nope.
this football program.
Okay, good.
Anyways,
I thought you were going to go to a moon reference in Purdue's uniforms that they're going to use.
I know.
Weekend.
Did you see that? That was so.
Yeah,
and then the
did.
UCF fans got upset because
Yeah.
UCF did something.
In 2017, except and then the Purdue did actually. Yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, look, going from just beating these teams and being like, oh, thank God we didn't blow that game, right? Like 2013 Indiana is like, oh God, we have UConn coming to town. Like, oh no, like we don't want to get embarrassed on Big Ten Network, not even national television. We don't want to get embarrassed on Big Ten Network.
Regional Big Ten Network.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And now we've gone to like, oh God, I hope we don't, I hope, the moon landing was faked anyways. Thanks, Duncan in chat. Oh God, I lost my thought. Now we go.
That's
God,
okay.
I hope we don't give up 14 points to Rutgers at home. So, it's just what Tom Allen's done with this program is great, and the expectations are up, which they should be from this program going forward.
So, yep, we'll follow it next weekend. Next week shouldn't be too much of a difference in what we talk about, but we'll obviously keep following. Hopefully, Indiana racks up a bunch of wins within the next 4 games, because that is honestly now what's expected. They've got 4 potential games coming up that they should and very well could win. One of them they hopefully definitely will win, but then let's see where Indiana is at the end of October. It's a really important month going into November, and we're just going to keep you updated, and hopefully this is going to be a good year and a good stepping stone, because we were also talking in the back channels. Man, just think about next year. Think about sophomore Michael Penix. Then just think about a junior Michael Penix and all of these like junior Taiwan Mullen. And I could name a bunch of people that just think of not freshman or sophomore, and think of advanced and veteran juniors and seniors that are on this team right now. So
you haven't seen Bo Robbins yet either.
Exactly. Yep. And Matthew Bedford's getting in there and looking good, but let's wrap it up so we don't go too long and we're not just randomly talking about the moon landing being faked. And we're going to wrap it up for our 109 show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you especially to people like Duncan and Nathan coming out and participating in our chat. It makes it really fun, as you guys can hear a bunch of laughs, but if you don't get the inside joke, you have to come visit us Tuesday evenings, 8:30 p.m. live on YouTube, so you can come participate in that. We will be back. One of us will be back next Monday for another edition of our Hoosier Sound Off. News and updates come through Twitter, so subscribe to our show so you don't miss any of those weekly episodes. Most importantly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. Tell a friend, share our links. That's really how this podcast grows, not just by liking our Twitter article. It's by sharing this to a friend that you think might like our content. But, as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See y'all.